If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain how I found out about this. It's free. It's on your app store. There's a creation tool that allows you to record and edit your podcast right now from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Please, I urge you, don't waste another minute. I wasted 3 years. I attended all kinds of events to learn all the steps. I was so confused, and it was right here. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Do it now. Good Sunday, April 18, 2021. I'm Sabah Fakhoury, your host of the Heart and Home podcast. Today, I'm back to talk to you about Martha Beck. Martha has been working with people for over 30 years to create their best life. And this week, she released a new book called The Way of Integrity. The book buzz began last weekend with Oprah and Oprah Daily, Maria Shriver, with her Sunday paper, who, by the way, is the publisher of this book, and others talking about integrity in their Instagram posts and in their email to followers. Then a few days later, author of Eat, Pray, Love, Elizabeth Gilbert, threw Martha a book party. Yesterday, I took part in Martha's virtual workshop entitled True Self, True Life, True Purpose through the Omega Institute. A couple of nuggets from the book. Quote, integrity is the cure of psychological suffering. Period. End quote. Martha tells us that the way of integrity includes a 4-stage process to find integrity and purpose, emotional healing, and a life free of mental suffering. She says, if you are a people pleaser, if you remain in bad relationships, or if you have negative habits, you're out of integrity. There's many exercises throughout the book, but the bottom line is to challenge yourself to tell the truth. In other words, don't lie, not to others or to yourself. The truth will set you free, whether your challenge is for a month or for a year. Tell people what you really think and feel, and don't be a people pleaser. So in this post-pandemic period, one thing that Martha says is, radical truth-telling rocks a lot of boats. So say what you mean. Well, I know for one thing that for sure, during the pandemic, domestic violence did rise. We did see stories about that, but then I didn't see anything else. So I don't know what happened. It's all of a sudden like people just forgot about that. Domestic violence has always been a big problem in this country and worldwide. So this is not about that. It's about you, your actions, and what you do in your society, in your home, in your workplace, and whether you're a churchgoer or wherever you worship. The book introduction was something that both Oprah and Maria read in their message to their followers. and it is a wonderful opening. Quote, "Even if you're not a frequent flyer, this has probably happened to you. The plane is fully boarded. Everyone's laptops are stowed. The flight attendants have done their mandatory dance about the seat belts and the floor lights and the oxygen masks that will not inflate. Then, just as you expect to roll away from the gate, everything stops. The captain's sheepish voice crackles through the cabin. 'Sorry, folks, we have a slight malfunction. Probably just a glitch, but we need to call some mechanics to check. We're looking at a bit of a wait.' A ripple of woe runs through the passengers. Your heart sinks. How long will you be trapped in this uncomfortable seat between a man who reeks of cheap cologne and a fretfully teething baby before the plane finally flies? But after this initial burst of dismay, everyone heaves a sigh and settles in. You all approve of the crew's caution. You're about to travel 5 miles above the Earth's surface in this mighty machine. No one, not even the baby, wants the plane taking off if it's not in perfect structural integrity. This book, as you may have gleaned from the title, is all about integrity. But I don't mean this in a moralizing sense. The word integrity has taken on a slightly prejudgmental nuance in modern English. But the word comes from the Latin integer, which simply means intact. To be in integrity is to be one thing, whole and undivided. When a plane is in integrity, all its millions of parts work together smoothly and cooperatively. If it loses integrity, it may stall, falter, or crash. There's no judgment here, just physics. As above in aerodynamics, so below in our everyday lives. When you experience unity of intention, fascination, and purpose, you live like a bloodhound on a scent, joyfully doing what feels truest in each moment. Your daily work, whether it's writing, computer code, gardening, or building houses, is so absorbing that at the end of the day, you don't really want to stop. But when you do, you enjoy hanging out with loved ones so much, and sleep is so delicious, you can't imagine anything sweeter. And when you wake up the next morning, the day ahead seems so enticing, so practically bound out of bed. If you are like many people I've coached, you may be rolling your eyes right now. It may sound like I'm wearing rose-colored glasses and munching antidepressants like jelly beans. You may never have felt the kind of sustained joie de vivre I'm describing. You might not believe that such a fulfilling life is possible. It is." End quote. So I have been reading, or actually listening to the book on Audible. I'm almost done with it. And yesterday, I took part in this course that Martha was offering. It was online. She normally had done in-person courses, but this was all done on Zoom. There were about 300 people that were on the call, and then maybe not everybody made it, so that maybe they'll catch the replay. It was a Saturday after all, when everybody's busy running around doing all their errands, and there's always the replay. For those of us on the call live, Martha said that the course was to line up our body, heart, mind, and soul. She says if it sounds right, if your body relaxes, emotionally it says it's true, then you should feel peace, freedom, like a spirituality. She says enlightenment always tastes of freedom, and that we're born perfectly aligned.
But then comes cultural pressure, family, ethnic, religious, academic, work, versus your true nature, which we get pushed off because we try to please our culture. So we're caught in these two realms. She says other things that push us off our true nature are trauma and socialization. She doesn't go into all the different levels of trauma, but she recognizes that is also other things that could push us off integrity. So throughout the book, we're taking through Dante's Divine Comedy, the dark wood of error, when Dante sleepwalked away from the true path. Now, Martha had read the book when she was 18, and at that time in her life, she had become very, very ill with an autoimmune disease, and she was bedridden for I don't know how many years, but she had gotten sick, and I don't know how long it took her to finally get well, but now she says she's doing much better. But her body went through a process. When your body gets sick, it's trying to tell you something. And that's what happened to her as she started to learn about things in her life. And that's what she's sharing in this book. Now, she's written other books and she's talked about other experiences, but this one kind of like puts everything all together. So she says, if you're doing what we're told, what would make you happy, it's causing us psychological suffering. So you might know this, but then not know it, because when it shows up in your body, you don't realize and put the two together. An example, she goes with being a people pleaser. You're not your true self, she says. That separates you from being your true self. And that's something that Martha had done all throughout her life as well. And she realized this and she said, no, this wasn't good. So she went through an exercise and she tells us to scan our body. So first we were told, were we comfortable in our position? And then she said, okay, now everybody just move into a comfortable position, because normally when I'm on Zoom, I'm lying down and I'm in a comfortable position. But today I'm just sitting at a chair. And most of us were sitting at a desk, at a computer. So we all adjusted and we got a little more comfortable. And then she says, okay, now I want you to scan your body with the attention starting from, your feet. Then we moved up to our legs, our thighs, our gut, our diaphragm, up to our heart, then to our throat, our shoulders, our neck, our head, and our face. And we were then told to adjust our body to feel more comfortable. So this is kind of like an adjustment where you take a look at your life, you take a look at the people and the relationship that you have, and you see, well, is this really serving me? Is this what's right for me? So she talks us through a 4-step process, as I mentioned. In the first process, she says, is that you go into the Inferno. It's like a psychological metaphorical, where you confront your demons that are trapped in your psyche until you reach rock bottom. So some of you might go to therapy and be able to do this and walk you through all the terrible things that happened in your life. So what you do is you examine what's inside of you. And what you will find that most of the time is that you find that you made a mistake, or that you believe things that that start to ferment in you, and then you realize that you're chained in hell by this belief system, which we're taught by our culture, whether it's through your family, through your religion, through your work, because work also has its own culture, whatever group that you're in, every group has its own culture where there's rules that you're told that you have to follow. And then if you don't follow them, well, then you're not part of the group. And everybody knows this. I mean, in society, we're told, oh, don't be, don't be selfish. Don't think of yourself. You have to think of others and think of the group. Well, forget that. You should put yourself first, especially if you're a mom. Take time for yourself. Heal yourself. Yesterday, I had a self-care day. I didn't do anything. I was going to cut the lawn, but I said, you know what? It's my birthday, and I'm not going to cut the lawn. I'm not going to edge it. I'm not going to do anything. So, some days you just have to do that. And part of being out of integrity is when you're doing something and you're working so hard and you know you should stop and take a break, but you don't, and you just keep going. That's also causing you to get out of alignment. Those of us that are working long hours, putting in 40, 50, 60-hour weeks, some as high as 80 hours, that's taking a toll on your body. There's only so much that your mind can handle after all these years of abusing your body, and then your body starts to shut down. Some will get a disease. Others will have other ways that it'll manifest where, it rears its ugly head. Okay, so back to the book. You get to step 3, where you're in purgatory, and that's a cleansing process. And then you have to climb upward by doing in real life, by acting your truth. Betraying is a way of life by people who taught you how to behave. So they don't like that you say what you mean and do what you really want. So you're going to start to see a lot of people that you might lose as friends. Family members might turn against you. In the book, Dante finds the poet Virgil as his guide that tells him, go further. Go down even further. Even when you reach rock bottom. And he's like, I can't go down any further. So what he does is he climbs onto Lucifer in the lake of ice and goes up and climbs up to freedom. Now you can fly because all your parts are in integrity. So this book that Martha wrote is because she wanted to know how the truth will set you free really happens, that process. We've all heard that saying, the truth will set you free. But do we all follow that? So she says that you may have to go through the cycle for every part of your life. So it's not just doing it once and you're done, that there are other parts in your life that you might have to deal with that go against your own integrity. So she takes us through an exercise. She says, think of something in your life that isn't working. Like, there's 6 symptoms that you lose your true nature. You lose your sense of purpose. You have bad emotional moods, anxiety that develop into bad medical health, which is the body saying, turn around, turn around. And then you develop addiction. The first step is to admit that you're in the dark wood. Things aren't working. And then you find yourself climbing Mount Delectable in society, pushing yourself, resting less and doing more, overcaring for people that resent you, burning yourself out. Taking care of another person's life is not your business. It's their business. But culture teaches us, oh no, you have to take care of the elderly. And I was like, oh my God, that's what my culture teaches me, and that's what I'm doing. And then there were all these other people chiming in the chat saying, yes, my mother, my father, he's so mean. Oh yes, this and that. And all people were starting to like, yeah, we have this in our life. They all could relate. So Martha says, okay, let go of trying the normal way, okay? Things that you're trying to achieve, they might not be right for you. Like, recognize this isn't the goal of your true self. So even if you're heading toward the right goal, it might not be the way that was right for you. So rethink, readjust. She says, okay, life isn't perfect, but you come to the gate in the dark wood, and the sign reads, abandon all hope, thee who enter here. Find a teacher, the hero, which is your own integrity. Dante finds it in the ghost of the poet Virgil. And you have to acknowledge these demons within you. Look at where you are, caught by your beliefs, mad, sad, or scared thoughts. Recognizing the feeling of the outer teacher versus the feeling of inner teacher versus an outer teacher, which is like a book or something. So the inner teacher is you taking yourself through the process and learning that you have to be able to climb out of the situation where you're at right now. So she says, okay, like for something like as menial as taking out the trash. Say, I am meant to take out the trash or empty the kitty litter and see how your mind feels. Then she says, say, I am meant to live in peace. That's your true nature. And then she says, your body all of a sudden shifts towards joy. So what you say to yourself is very important. And we always, talk about your inner thoughts and how you talk to yourself. Don't beat up on yourself. Be kind to yourself and realize that we all know it. We're our own worst enemy. So what she says is that she uses the process of walking back the cat, looking at things in reverse. So she says, find when your thoughts took you another way, a different path. Belief to keep working instead of resting. She says that one day she was working really hard. She was moving from apartments. She was in New York, and she knew that she should stop and take a break, and she didn't, and she kept working. And then by the time she finally went into a cafe, she went in there and she ordered eggs Benedict, and she knew she wasn't supposed to have eggs, but she did. And then she started thinking back. Oh, she said, you know what? I should have stopped working when I didn't. And then that took me off path. She said, okay, that was only one thought that she had. But she said, we have millions of thoughts that push us off our integrity. These are our inner demons. Observe them, question them, and move on. And ask yourself, are you sure about that? If it doesn't feel like it's true, question. Question your attachment of your belief, which is something she learned from Byron Katie. She says, say, that might not be true. Scan your body. See it's not useful to feel bad. Then ask yourself, what if that thought is just gone? Who you are without your attachment to that thought. Like a lot of people were saying, I'm not good enough. And so the question is to chisel and break that thought off. And that breaks the chain and it frees you. So asking the right questions is very important. I know I'm reading another book called Soundtracks by John Acuff. And one of the things that he says to say is, ask yourself, is this true? It's the same thing. so often what our mind thinks we believe as true, but not all our thoughts are true. So the next step to get out of hell, turn around and start climbing, the opposite of your worst fear, is probably the next best step to enlightening. So Martha, at 29, took the integrity cleanse. She left her religion, she left academia, she left her marriage, and when she did all that, she remembered that she'd been abused by her father, who was a big cheese in the Mormon church. So she started to think, oh my God, something terrible is going to happen because I wrote this book. And everybody in the community was like calling everybody else saying, don't listen to what she's saying. Just ignore her. She doesn't know what she's saying. And I guess her family tried to, I don't know, put her in jail or something. I can't remember exactly what happened to her. She didn't go into detail of that portion of her life. But she was scared. I mean, she had like bodyguards with her. But then she started to think, I was going to happen to something terrible. And the opposite of the most painful truth is bashing down your door. You're right. Leave the Inferno. When you do, then the turnaround begins. You climb the mountain to reach paradise. And you have to be willing to act out the truth. And that's something that she did at age 29, where she decided that for a year, she was not going to lie. Now, we all tell little white lies. You have to choose when you do that. Like when somebody's knocking on your door and you're in a foreign country and they know you're of a certain tribe, then you're not going to go out and say, oh yeah, I'm from this tribe. You don't say it. But in general, you want to say your truth. In other words, one of the biggest things that a lot of us make is we say yes to doing something and we don't want to. And then we have to back out and hurt somebody. Well, what if you just said, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not available. Or no, that's not a good time for me. And you actually said no instead of saying yes and then turning around and breaking your promise. That's an example of telling the truth. When someone says to you, hey, you want to get together Friday night? Well, you have plans of getting into bed early, reading a book, and you're like, nah. But, you get pushed. And then you're like, oh, okay, yeah. And then when the time comes and you're like, I really don't want to go. And then you either have to push yourself and go against your will, or you have to go and break somebody's heart and say, I'm not going to make it. There's an exercise that Martha teaches us from Mario Martinez. And she says, do what you want. Feel the sensation when you depart from the group norm. Feel how you're being judged by others. It's the ultimate betrayal. So you know it's going to happen, right? You do something against the group, against your family, against the church, as she did in her case. And you imagine two scenarios. Imagine everyone betraying you, not supporting you. And then you imagine the same scenario where everyone agrees with you and encourages you to be yourself. And you go between that, back and forth, being judged, being supported. And she says what happens is it rips the tires of your soul and your entire nervous system, and it finds its integrity. And you require yourself through the whole body. So that is something that is a little difficult to imagine, but if it happens to you in real life, you have to take an actual event of something that happened. Like say maybe you wanted to leave your husband, or you announced to the family, things aren't working out, we're separating. And everybody's like, what? You can't do that. What are you doing? Well, you know what? They don't live in your house. They don't know what you're going through. It's not their decision to make. It's yours. You have to do what's right for you. So if everybody's going to go against you, then you can't give in to them. I have friends that I know that they may have been married at an early age. They wanted to leave their husband. They weren't happy. They go back home to their parents' house, and then their parents end up taking them back to their husband. It's like, what? You're putting me back with someone that I can't even stand, who doesn't treat me right. I'm being abused. And then my friend ends up running away. And not to her parents' house again. She runs away to another city to someone that's a friend and stays with him because her own family won't even help her. You do what you have to do so you feel free. You feel enlightened. You feel safe. Now, Martha tells us to imagine 3 things that we did right. That we shouldn't always think about bad things. That there are things that we are doing right in our life. And she tells us that we're beautiful. All of us. Think of a few things that you want. And think of what you yearn for. Like when you're laying awake in bed in the dark. You may not get what you want, but you will get what you yearn, she tells us. She says there's a compassionate witness that says, I'm really scared. But what are you scared of? The part of the soul is always in peace. It loves experience, but it doesn't fear suffering. And she says finally that there's a poem called The Turning, where your name is stillness. And integrity means intact, whole, and undivided. And that's what I wish for all of you. Until next week, have a great week. I'm Sabah Fakhoury for the Heart and Home Podcast.